My name is Farhad Basar. I'm from Bangladesh. I work with farm in research and also mobilizing something like 10,000 households. So most of the households, they actually practice biodiversity based agriculture. This is my main interest. And in terms of the evidence, as we are discussing here, is very important. There is some very clear evidence, something that is very formalized. Peter, you are absolutely right that there is a difference in the culture research, of course. But there are many research evidence there where the connection between the agriculture system and the nutrition can be demonstrated very empirically. I'll give you one or two examples. One has been supported by IDRC, one of my colleagues in there, I don't know you personally. IDRC supported a study about the uncultivated food and its connection with the nutrition development. It almost before 10 years. And then in Bangladesh context, it shows that the poor people, the very vulnerable, can collect, in some cases, not less than 40% of their food from uncultivated sources. It's very interesting. I mean, that's quite challenging. And then eventually, we haven't been able to take up this research in a much more wider scale. The reason is simply because the dominant agriculture research paradigm was not very much interested about these kinds of evidences. That was the real problem. So the conflict and the contradictions, as you mentioned, Peter, is definitely very real, is in there. Secondly, many of us don't even understand why these notions are shifting, let's say, from biodiversity, ecosystem approach, and now we are talking about the resilient systems. I think they more or less, you're talking the same thing, isn't it? We're talking about the same thing since 90s. Okay, and then there is Agenda 21, there is the whole Earth Summit, and nothing has been changed. And the research priorities has not been changed for the farmer, and that's very unfortunate. And there is no, even though we discuss about a good relationship between the informal and the formal research system, it didn't work. I think in IDSC mentioned of the farmer-led research, I think IDSC supported farmer-led research in the whole South Asia, but it never came up to the mainstream. And I also attended with Peter in the biofortification, the recently we had, and I think some of our scientists has done excellent job in, for example, developing zinc-rich rice varieties through conventional methods. So even that has not been disseminated to the farmer. These can be really useful and can be taken with the farmer. There is a lot of, I think, gaps in many different levels, but I think we have to be very sure about that. Should we keep on changing our terms and the languages
to common languages,
or rather take up one thing very seriously in a determined way and see is good side and the bad side. I definitely would, as someone absolutely committed to biodiversity, understand the limitation of my work, but also there are quite clear evidence that ecosystem approach to agriculture enhances the productivity very clearly. Either you calculate through the single plant paradigm, let's say you only take one particular species and only calculate how much rice you have produced, ignoring how much you have destroyed already by using pesticides and others. Or you have taken another methodology by saying how whole system yields not only a particular rice varieties, but also how fish, how the livestock, how the fodder, how the different nutritional products also can be generated from the agricultural system. So these are very important issues.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'll end. I know that the other people who could really participate. I don't get much chance to talk about it. So this is my opportunity on behalf of the farmers. I think you will excuse me. So I think we need a really good understanding with the farmer researcher and the farmer, and the informal knowledge system. When I say the informal knowledge systems, look, what happens is this: when we simply change the name of a local variety into accession names, this is what we do in the Indian. We have already destroyed the local knowledge system, because the rice variety has been named because of its nutritional quality. Let's say pregnant women would have to have this particular rice, and they have a particular name for this. Children have to have that particular rice, and they have a different name for this. And there is only numbers. And now we talk about how do we make the communication to take to the farmers, to teach them what is the nutrition. Assumption that farmer doesn't know about nutrition, or the community is, I don't accept that. That comes from a very deep prejudice against the communities. So I'll end in here. I think that we should really go back what we really mean and do it together. Thank you.
Question right in the back there. Yes, please.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Benoit Yalonfin. I work for PACA Partnership for Aflatoxin Control in Africa, based at African Union Commission, Addis Ababa. Mine is, I want to go back to the history. There's one thing I did not hear it since morning. Here we are talking about people and health of the people and the resilience system. And then in the morning I was in a session where we were talking about food safety. So these two are linked. But the main question, when we are talking about land, the main question which I did not hear about it at all is how do we secure that land? In many African countries today, land, how to secure land for small-scale farmers is a big issue. That's why we have a lot of conflict. How do we help the government to make sure that we have policies, we enforce those policies, and then we secure land for small-scale farmers? If we don't address that question, I don't see how we are going to address health-free people and then link to everything that has been said before. So everything comes from the soil and then go back to the soil. But if we have people who are moving and then we have a lot of transhumance, then how are we going to talk about nutrition and then food security on the continent? So that's the main question. I think we have to go back and then help all African government and understand and then have strong policy and enforce them, do a lot of advocacy and then lobbying for that. So that's what I want to add.
Thank you. I'm going to hand over to the third row, a question. Yeah, Hans.
Yeah, thank you. Christoph Eiden, German Federal Office for Agriculture and Food. Listening to you this in the first round, I noted one remark, research to action, and I think that's what we are talking about. And therefore, my first question would be to the researchers. Do you feel that you have adequate and sufficient platforms to express your views in the ongoing international processes, from the scaling up nutrition movement to the post-2015 agenda debates? So do you feel you can feed into these debates and address the political leaders? And the second question would be, and that is a question which is linked to the first one, do you feel that the research community has the discipline needed really to come to a transdisciplinary approach and accepting that you may not only preach in your own church but also listening to others and come to this common approach which would then really lead us forward? Thank you.
Great question. I think we'll go back to the panel. I also have to hand over to John now.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
But,
Okay, thanks. Any quick comments on those points? Yes. I'm aware that we're going to frustrate a lot of people, so please keep it short as possible.
So, John, a bit to your point, and then the point that Christoph Eiden just made, I do think we've been worshiping in our own churches for far too long, and these debates have been an either-or, and I think we need to move to a both-and. And that's what I see as missing, and that's what I've always preached in every role that I've had throughout my life. And I think it's hard, But I think we have, because the either-or solution doesn't provide anything to farmers. It doesn't provide anything to consumers. And we have to get out of our own churches, like you said. You and I talked in the hallway about whether the researchers have sufficient access to some of these platforms. And I would say we could have access, but a lot of times we don't, because they seem so divorced from the long-term agenda that researchers are working on, or seem far too complicated. We just don't know where to grab them. But I think, as you and I talked, in particular, for the Sun Initiative and some of these others, they could be much better informed by some of the research that's going on. I think we need to find entry points for engaging that. And just to the gentleman who raised the point about land tenure, I think you've really spelled out some of the research issues that need to be addressed in the institutional piece of these nutrition-sensitive landscapes.
Okay. Per and then Bronwyn.
Just a couple of points, because we're running out of time. I want to make a point on the role of agriculture research. Ag research has been very successful in reducing the risk in production, and presumably that contributes to stronger resilience both for producers and consumers, drought tolerance, insect resistance, etc., etc. Ag research has been much less successful in promoting a diversified diet. We have been going for single commodities where we have been able to have the greatest impact. And the Green Revolution, as far as I'm concerned, is the most successful development effort the world has ever seen, so don't get me wrong. However, it's now time to take a look at the commodity portfolio and combine the resilience question, the resilience goal, if that's what it is, with the nutrition goal by putting a lot more emphasis on the kinds of tolerances and resistance we're looking for, but in fruits and vegetables. So we get a diversified production system which will reduce the cost of those things that are missing in the diet of people that would have the micronutrients they need, so that we can promote a diversified diet that way. So I think ag research has a very important role to play. I was at a meeting recently where I made this point, and one of my great friends who had been pushing single commodity research, basically the basic stable foods, disowned me completely. He said, no, don't go there. You're not going to have the kind of impact. So that's why I think resilience and nutrition come together if we can agree on moving in that direction. The other point is on, do we have the platform to disseminate results from research? I would much rather see this as a platform to communicate with decision makers, because I think it's a two-way communication. And no, we could use a lot more opportunities. I'm working very closely with a committee on food security right now, and I think that's a tremendous opportunity for discussing these kinds of things with representatives of governments in many different countries. But yes, we would like to have much more communication, but going in both directions. We need to know what policymakers want to know, and then we need to help them find out. Thank you.